that degree of continuity when you're not going to be around all the time, that there are some periods when you need to have continuity. And that was one of them, and that was one which could make a real impact.
As Princess Anne took her final steps through the palace, time seemed to stop. Staff who had stood by her side for decades were overcome with emotion, some breaking down in tears as they watched her say goodbye forever. Hearts were shattered in silence. The effect of her departure hit like a wave. And what happened next would reveal a truth no one expected. Could this mean the end of an era? Join us as we find out the reason behind Anne's sudden exit and how it affects the monarchy's future, gone for good. For more than 5 decades, Princess Anne worked hard without slowing down. She stayed focused on her royal duties and didn't try to grab attention. While others in the royal family sometimes ended up in crisis, Anne kept to her routine. She showed up when she was needed, carried out her responsibilities, and moved on without making drama. She didn't act like she was better than anyone, and she didn't try to look like a victim either. She just got on with her job and did it well. Many people inside the palace grew to admire her because of how she carried herself. She kept a busy schedule, filled with all kinds of royal events. From visiting army bases to attending charity fundraisers, she never sat back. Her calendar stayed full year after year. While others were often talked about for their outfits or family drama, Anne stayed focused on what had to be done. Most years she handled over 400 official duties, sometimes more than any other royal. She didn't just show up to make appearances. She became someone the entire system leaned on. Her strong work ethic made her an essential part of the monarchy. Recently, things took a new turn. Princess Anne stepped away from her longtime residence and left her base in Edinburgh. Her absence left a real gap. Those who worked with her or depended on her started to feel the difference right away. It wasn't just about losing a hard-working member of the family. It was about losing someone who believed deeply in service. She didn't see her role as a way to get noticed. She saw it as a way to give back. She stood for a certain kind of duty that many people had started to forget. As she walked away from her post, the mood around her changed. Some of her longtime staff grew emotional. A few even broke down in tears. Her steady presence has helped many people feel more secure. In moments when others didn't know what to do, they often looked to Anne. She didn't act perfect or act like she had all the answers, but she always came prepared. She stayed ready no matter what happened around her. Even the way she stepped back from her role spoke volumes. She simply left in her usual straightforward way. Now the royal family must figure out how to move ahead without her. She had always helped hold everything together. While others were caught up in big changes or public attention, Anne worked in the background to keep things stable. With her stepping aside, something important feels different. The family stands at a crossroads. They need to decide how to carry on. Now that the person who always showed up without asking for anything is no longer there, her absence is not irrelevant. She was someone who gave strength without needing to be thanked. King Charles now faces harder days without his sister beside him. The pressure on the royal family is growing, and stress is starting to build. Anne was someone he could count on, not just as a royal partner, but also as a family member who never stepped away from her responsibilities. Without her, Charles must handle both public duties and private matters without the strong support he once had. At the same time, he must decide how to shape the monarchy from here. Will he stick with old traditions, or will he try a new approach? That choice is getting harder to avoid. The royal family isn't what it used to be. Titles and birthright don't mean as much as they once did. What matters now is effort, trust, and the ability to bring people together. Anne's departure doesn't bring division, but it changes the direction the family is heading in. It signals a shift in how things work. And somehow, that decision had more meaning than any announcement ever could. The palace is no longer held together by rules alone. What holds it now is personal character and public connection. This isn't a loud change, but one with purpose. Anne's way of leading, strong, consistent, dedicated, has left behind a gap. It's not something that others can just fill by showing up. Her importance came from what she did, not how often she appeared in the media. The ones who remain must now take on more and figure out how to lead in their own way. The royal family still holds its titles, but the people behind them are different. The world around them has moved on. The pace of change is faster now, and the future won't slow down to wait for anyone. Every decision made from here on out will shape how the monarchy fits into modern life. With Anne no longer standing in her usual place, the pressure to get things right feels even heavier than before. Her departure didn't come with a big event, but as time passed, something became clear. Her work, her way of handling things, and her unseen strength had held up more than people realized. Now that she has stepped back, those who remain must carry on, hopefully learning from how she led by example. Meanwhile, before she left, something interesting happened that the staff would probably never forget. Leading with a heart. Princess Anne spent her last weeks in Edinburgh in a way that showed how deeply she felt about the place. She didn't make any public appearances, and she didn't speak to the press. There were no events, no official goodbyes. She simply stuck to her daily routine just as she had done for years. She got up early each morning, dressed plainly, and stepped out for long walks around the estate. These walks grew longer as the days went by. Each step seemed to carry some memory, as though she was walking through moments from her past years. She didn't speak much during those walks, but those close to her picked up on something. Princess Anne began to spend more time with the people who had worked beside her for so long. Slowly, she found simple and thoughtful ways to let them know she was thankful. She gave a signed photograph to the gardener's son. She wrote a kind note to the housekeeper who had brought her tea every morning for 15 years. Her notes were short but held words from her heart. She gave them out with a small smile, holding their hands just a little longer than usual, as if trying to hold on to something she didn't want to lose. Inside her room, everything stayed exactly the same. Her desk remained tidy. Her wardrobe was in order. The journal she kept in her drawer stayed shut. She hadn't written in it for days. It felt like she had already said everything she needed to say. The way she moved through each day made it clear this wasn't just another day at the estate. It was something more final. Her face looked more weary. Her eyes didn't shine the way they used to. Something heavy sat inside her. Only those who had been with her for a long time could sense the change. The staff who had served her for years began to notice how she looked at things differently. She took her time walking through the rooms. She stopped to touch the staircase railing. She stood near the garden gate and stared for minutes at a time. These actions weren't part of a routine. They were silent goodbyes. She wasn't just walking around. She was slowly letting go of a place that had always given her comfort, and of people who had stood by her side for so long. Even though she had always kept her feelings to herself, there was a soft tone in her during those final days. When the day of her departure finally came, everything felt different. It wasn't like any other day. The staff gathered near the entrance of the estate. Many had worked with her for 2 or 3 decades. They stood in a line, hands held together, some wiping their faces. A few leaned into each other, unable to speak. This was more than just the end of a job. It was the end of a relationship. She had always treated the staff with kindness, and they had not forgotten that. One longtime valet stood still, his eyes wet. He recalled how she showed respect, not as a royal talking to workers, but as one person speaking to another. Another staff member, a footman who had spent many years in her service, found it hard to say anything. His voice was low as he tried to explain how much she had cared. Even though she didn't always show it with words, she had a way of making people feel noticed. She never made anyone feel small. She believed in doing things properly and working hard, but she never looked down on anyone. She remembered birthdays, asked about families, and even offered help to those going through hard times. She treated her staff with simple acts of care day after day. Over time, these small actions built strong bonds between her and those who worked around her. That's why her decision to leave came as a shock to many. No one saw it coming. She packed up her things neatly, left behind handwritten notes, and got ready to move on. Inside the palace, people began to wonder what had made her leave so suddenly. The estate had always been close to her heart. She had spent so many years walking its paths, sitting in its rooms. but no one received an explanation. She made her choice privately, just like everything else she had done. For the people left behind, the change was hard. The rooms felt different without her presence. The halls no longer carried the sound of her steady steps. Life in the estate continued, but nothing felt the same. She had left an irreversible mark, not because of her role, but because of how she made others feel. She had never ruled with fear or rigidity. She had ruled with love and grace. What seemed like a simple move away became something much deeper. It marked a change that would not be forgotten. As the weeks passed, people began to talk about her in a new way. They remembered those final days with respect and emotion. She hadn't asked for anything special, rather she had simply gone through her last days with thoughtfulness. Every kind word she left behind, every sweet note, and every look she gave meant something. Her way of saying goodbye was calm but clear. It wasn't just the end of a visit. It felt like the end of something that had lasted a lifetime. A way of life filled with strength, care, and loyalty that had touched everyone around her. The impact of Princess Anne's departure. When Anne left her Edinburgh home for the last time, the day looked just like any other. There was nothing unusual about it. Yet something about that moment felt different, like a long chapter had finally ended. It didn't seem like just another royal duty. It marked the end of a certain kind of royal life, one that was slowly slipping away over the years. For so long, Anne had lived her life by one clear rule: duty first. She never pushed herself into the spotlight. She didn't look for praise or attention. She just kept going, working every day with a serious mind and firm hands. As her car rolled away, moving slowly down the familiar street, a heavy feeling hung in the air. Those who had worked for her stood still, not knowing what to say or do. A few kept watching her leave, their faces showing the weight of the moment. Others looked away, trying hard not to show their feelings. To them, it wasn't just about a royal figure leaving. It felt like something deeply valued was slipping away. Anne had given so much of her life without ever making a fuss. She had done everything without needing thanks. Now, as she left, the world she had represented seemed to fade with her. While Edinburgh fell into a still mood, a very different feeling began to rise in London. At Buckingham Palace, something heavy started to build. It wasn't loud, but it could be felt in every corner. There was confusion and unspoken fear. Anne's choice to leave had taken everyone by surprise. It made people stop and think. Inside, the atmosphere turned tense. Advisors exchanged serious looks. Staff members spoke in low tones, walking from room to room as if unsure where they were meant to go. Nothing was said out loud, but the feeling was clear. Something wasn't right. Anne's exit wasn't something done on a whim. It felt like a warning. Many inside the palace picked up on it. The feeling reached into every meeting and every hallway. People didn't need to say it aloud. They could feel that something was out of place. When Anne, the most dependable member of the royal family, chose to walk away, it meant something had gone wrong. She had always been there during difficult times, standing firm while others struggled. Her departure didn't just bring an end to a part of her journey. It made people wonder if the royal family itself was breaking apart from within. At the heart of this change was a growing divide. On one side was King Charles. He still held on to the old ways, believing the royal family should stick to its traditional path. He saw duty and order as the foundation of the monarchy. On the other side was Catherine. Her approach was softer, more modern, but it was starting to grow stronger. Many had believed the late queen had always supported her. Anne had done the same, but only in private. That made her decision to leave even more important. It was a sign of something deeper. Some members of the royal household tried to keep things under control. They explained Anne's choice as personal. They said she simply wanted to step back. But others who understood how things really worked knew better. They could see that Anne's decision was not just about herself. For someone who had dedicated her whole life to service to suddenly walk away, the cause had to be serious. Those who had worked closely with her knew how steady she had always been. She had never turned her back on duty. But this time, Anne had no intentions of speaking out. She didn't cause a scene. She left in the same way she had lived, without noise, without trouble. She didn't try to explain herself. She didn't point fingers, she just stepped away, leaving others to figure out what should happen next. The palace worked hard to keep up appearances, but day by day, one thought kept spreading, passed from one person to another like a low whisper growing louder. What had really pushed Anne to walk away? As the days went on, palace life tried to settle again. But the truth was, things had changed for good. It wasn't just the end of a royal role, it was the end of a whole way of being. Anne had stood for something that was slowly disappearing: loyalty, discipline, and a kind of royal image that didn't seek attention or reward. She had shown what service looked like, not by speaking, but by doing. Now she was gone, leaving behind a space no one else could step into. Her absence now filled every room, making everyone feel the weight of what had been lost. The image of her car moving down that street in Edinburgh stayed in people's minds. It wasn't what they expected, but it said so much. It showed a kind of grace that didn't need words. The crown had shifted, not just in form, but in spirit. And as life at the palace moved forward, the memory of Anne's unexpected exit stayed, reminding everyone of what had gone with her. Meanwhile, before she left, she handed an envelope to her private secretary. She just gave it to him and walked away without turning back. This made people wonder, what was it about? The hard truth revealed. After Princess Anne was gone, suspense filled the atmosphere as the staff began to imagine what the envelope held. Interestingly, inside it was a message for her staff. It wasn't long, but it was full of emotion. She had written that they had felt like home to her. Those short words carried heavy meaning. They showed that something had changed inside her. Something had happened that pushed her to step away from a place she once treated like a second home. But that wasn't all the note talked about. It also said something important had been left in her private study. Soon, people inside the palace began to talk, not just about what she wrote, but more about what she had left behind. In the corner of her study, hidden in a drawer, was something no one had expected. It wasn't a royal letter. It wasn't an official file or anything for the public. It was a small journal, covered in brown leather, slightly old and scratched at the corners. It looked like nothing special from the outside, but inside, it told a completely different story. She had been writing in that journal for years. Every page was filled carefully, one after another. She had written down her thoughts with honesty. Her words were simple but intense. She had poured out her happiness, her sadness, her hopes, and her doubts. She wrote with truth. The journal showed a part of her that most people never saw. It was filled with feelings she had kept hidden for a long time. Before she left Edinburgh, she gave one final order. That journal was to go straight into the hands of her most trusted aide. No one else was allowed to touch it. No assistants, no bodyguards. Only that one person she trusted the most. It had to be done exactly as she said. People who read parts of the journal said the words were powerful. One sentence kept coming up again and again through the palace walls. The day everything changed, I knew I couldn't stay. That line stood out. She didn't write down any names. She didn't say who or what caused it. But everyone understood what it meant. Many believe she was speaking about something that happened after the Queen passed away. Something that shook her to the core. Something so strong that even all her years of loyalty couldn't hold her back anymore. For most of her life, she had stayed loyal. She believed in her role. She worked hard. She didn't break rules. She followed orders. But she wasn't unaware. She saw when things started to shift. According to someone who had worked closely with her, she had begun to feel like the real meaning of duty was slipping away. What once felt important and full of care now felt more like politics and performance. In her journal, she had written about King Charles and how she felt about his new role. She didn't insult him. She didn't sound bitter, but she told the truth as she saw it. She had written warnings, the kind of warnings only a sister could give. She did it for a reason. Her words were never aggressive, but they were hard. The pages also talked about the arguments and tension growing inside the palace. Meetings were held behind closed doors. People were fighting over how the monarchy should be seen by the public. There were more disagreements than before. And as she watched all of this unfold, she began to feel uneasy. Old customs were being brushed aside. The royal family she had worked so long to protect was changing fast. But the biggest shock came near the end of the journal. On the final pages, she wrote about something very few people knew. She revealed a hidden letter written by Queen Elizabeth II. The Queen had given her the letter secretly before passing away. No one else had ever read it. Anne had kept it safe, just like her mother asked. She had carried the weight of that message alone. In her writing, she said her mother had given her the truth, and now it was her job to keep it safe.
My mother was the Queen for a very long time. And although you kind of know that this might happen, you don't really think about it very much.
Those words turned everything around. This was no longer just about a princess leaving her role. It became a story about something passed down from one generation to the next. It could be a last wish, a final thought, maybe even a warning. That letter, kept hidden for so long and trusted only to her, was about to bring changes across the whole royal family. People were already surprised by what the journal had revealed, but the letter brought something stronger. Its words made people think hard about what had really been happening. More so, it made people stop and think about recent choices. Some started to wonder what the Queen truly wanted for the future. Others questioned if the new direction was the right one. That hidden letter had the power to change minds. The Queen's final message, shared only with her daughter, now carried more importance than anyone expected. As more of her story began to come out, it was no longer just about walking away. It became about holding on to something meaningful, something that could shape the future in ways no one saw coming. An excellent track record. Princess Anne always stepped forward with purpose and carried out her royal duties without holding back. As the only daughter of Queen Elizabeth II, she understood where she belonged and took on her responsibilities without complaint. She never asked for special treatment or tried to avoid anything. Instead, she kept going, no matter how demanding the situation. She handled her role with steady focus and took every task seriously. She kept showing up, never making a scene, never needing to explain herself. Over time, she worked hard without slowing down. She joined hundreds of events, ceremonies, and visits across the country and overseas. She traveled often, meeting people from all walks of life, supporting important causes, and standing in when the royal family needed someone to represent them. She stood prepared, always ready to do what was asked of her. Even as others around her stepped back or took breaks, she carried on with her duties. She didn't do it for praise or attention. She just kept going because it was the right thing to do. Through many changes in the world and within the royal family, she didn't lose her direction. What made her efforts more powerful was how she managed to work through everything without drawing too much notice. She kept up her duties day after day, becoming someone people could count on. But beyond the public image, she also became someone her family could rely on. During hard times, when pressure started to build, she helped to bring stability. She didn't raise her voice or take sides. She simply stood firm and gave her full attention to what mattered. Over time, people inside the family turned to her for advice and support. Even those who were older looked to her for guidance. She earned that trust by showing strength when others were unsure. Queen Elizabeth herself saw her daughter as someone who could be counted on. They spent a lot of time together, attending events side by side. There was a connection between them, built on trust and shared purpose. The Queen didn't have to say anything. It was clear that she trusted her daughter totally. After the Queen passed away, that bond didn't disappear. Anne's role changed, but her importance remained just as strong. When King Charles stepped into his new role, he knew that his sister's loyalty and experience could help him. Like their mother, he trusted her. Anne supported him without asking for anything. She gave him space when needed and stood by him when times became hard. She never tried to take the spotlight. She just kept doing what she had always done, helping her family in her own steady way. Even as the royal family faced many changes, she remained stable. Her years of experience helped her deal with everything around her. She didn't panic. She just stayed focused and brought strength when it was needed the most. Her presence became a source of clarity when others felt unsure. But her royal duties weren't the only part of her life. She also stepped out and built something different for herself. One of her greatest passions outside royal life was horses. She didn't just ride for fun. She trained hard and competed in serious events. In a sport where men usually stood out, she worked hard to earn her place. She didn't rely on her name. She practiced every day, put in the effort, and showed she could stand with the best. Her achievements encouraged many women who thought they couldn't take part in that world. She proved that hard work and determination could open new paths. Her personal life also showed a different side of her. When it came to raising her children, she made a bold decision. She didn't give them royal titles, even though she had the right to. She made that choice to protect them. She wanted them to grow up with more freedom, without the pressure that often comes with being part of the royal family. She hoped they could build their own futures without being held back by a title dot. She gave them space, while also standing by them with steady support. It was her way of giving them a better chance. She raised her children with the same careful approach she used in her work. She didn't push them into public life. She let them grow at their own pace. She understood how hard it could be to grow up in the public eye, so she tried to shield them from it. Her choices showed a mix of tradition and modern thinking. She kept her values, but still made thoughtful changes. As the years passed, Anne stayed close to her family, offering help and strength when needed. Princess Anne also worked hard for many charities. She always prepared for her visits, studied the details, and showed real interest in each group. She didn't show up just to be seen. She wanted to help in real ways. She supported over 300 organizations, many focused on health, education, animals, and saving lives. She often traveled to hospitals, shelters, and farms to meet people and see things for herself. She took time to listen to doctors, volunteers, patients, and workers. She asked questions, took notes, and found out what was needed. Her long work with Save the Children took her to places far from home, where she met families going through war, hunger, and disaster. She didn't just pass through. She stayed, listened, and tried to understand their struggles. She also supported sports and young people. She believed in helping youth clubs and activities that build confidence. She helped groups that care for people with disabilities, treating everyone with dignity. She stayed active, filling her days with meetings, speeches, and visits. Her schedule was always full, but she never rushed through anything. She paid attention, followed through, and kept up her energy year after year. People came to respect her not because of her royal title, but because of her actions. She kept moving forward, stayed on track, and never gave up. Whether in royal work, sport, or family life, she showed strength and balance. She didn't ask for applause. She just kept doing the work. Always ready, always steady, always real. However, there has always been one person who Anne found it difficult to accommodate. A memory worth keeping. Princess Anne began to feel deeply uncomfortable when Camilla became a full part of the royal family. This shift did not sit well with her, and it slowly began to trouble her more and more. For Anne, Camilla's close bond with Prince Charles during the years he was still married to Princess Diana wasn't something she could overlook. It didn't seem like just a mistake. To her, it felt like something that marred the meaning of marriage, broke long-standing trust, and hurt the values the royal family had always tried to hold up. Because of this, she found it difficult to come to terms with Camilla's new place in the family. To Anne, this change shook up the sense of balance and respect that had taken years to build. Being a royal, in her view, was never about personal feelings or even family loyalty. It was about living with grace, showing respect for the crown every day, and holding on to the rules that kept the monarchy strong. Camilla's long-known connection with Charles while he was married felt like a direct insult to those rules. Anne saw it as something that didn't just harm one relationship. It damaged the core of the entire family structure. It didn't matter if people were still talking about it or not. What had happened cut deep. Diana had gone through a painful time in her marriage, and Anne couldn't forget what part Camilla played in that sorrow. She didn't need to speak about it all the time to feel the weight of it. She had always looked up to Diana in her own way. Even though they weren't especially close, Anne had noticed the effort Diana put into her royal duties. She saw how Diana showed care, how she carried herself, and how she made people feel seen. Diana brought something fresh into the world of royalty. People felt close to her because she seemed real and kind. She didn't put on a front. She showed that someone with power could still be warm and caring. Anne watched all this unfold and took note of it. It didn't matter that they were different in personality or style. What mattered was that Diana had helped people see the royal family in a different light. These were things Anne had grown up with and taken seriously all her life. Anne especially admired the way Diana raised William and Harry. She didn't just hand them off to others or keep them around. She gave them love, time, and understanding. She wanted her sons to grow up knowing what life was really like, not just what they saw inside the palace. Anne saw this and felt that it brought something new and good to the family. It was more than just parenting. It helped the monarchy feel more human. She believed that Diana, without forcing anything, had softened how the public looked at the royal family, and that meant a lot to Anne. When Diana passed away in 1997, the loss left a strong mark. Her demise didn't just affect her close family, it reached out to people around the world. The memory of her didn't fade. It became stronger with time. Anne didn't just think of Diana as someone her brother had once married. She saw her as a person who had changed the way the monarchy connected with the public. Diana had left a strong and lasting influence, and Anne believed that it shouldn't be pushed aside or forgotten. So when Camilla stepped into the royal circle more officially, those memories came back. Anne couldn't push them away. Camilla reminded her of the pain Diana had been through. Even though time had moved on, the feelings stayed. For Anne, having to accept Camilla felt like letting go of everything Diana had worked to build. Her manner towards Camilla, always distant but polite, came from a deep place. It wasn't bitterness. It was her way of holding on to what she believed was right. She felt she had to stand by Diana, even after so many years. Anne stayed true to her feelings. The public might have grown used to Camilla, even warmed up to her, but Anne didn't move with that same tide. Her heart stayed rooted in the past. Diana, to her, still stood for what the royal family could aim to be. She represented honesty, kindness, and a more open way of being royal. Anne found it hard to embrace someone whose history had caused so much damage to all that. She believed Diana's role had helped shape the values that mattered most within the family. It wasn't only about how the world saw Diana, it was about what she brought into the royal way of life: gentleness, openness, and a deeper understanding of duty. These were the things Anne didn't want to see disappear. No matter how things changed, she didn't turn her back on those beliefs. Camilla may have earned respect from many, but Anne remembered Diana's way of touching lives. She had brought that into focus, and Anne didn't want to see it disappear. Without saying much, Anne kept her respect for the past alive. Even as time moved on and Camilla became more accepted, Anne didn't drift away from her values. If anything, she held on to them more tightly. She stepped through changing times with grace, but she didn't let go of what Diana had brought into their world. She didn't allow time or public opinion to change what she believed. For her, the royal family still needed to reflect the kindness and understanding Diana had once shown. Anne didn't just serve the crown, she held on to the meaning behind it, one that Diana had helped bring to life, respecting the old ways. Princess Anne has always lived her life with strong discipline and a serious attitude. She grew up following old customs and clear rules, shaping her daily routine around responsibility and hard work. From early on, she made it clear that her role in the royal family would be unique. She didn't chase after attention or try to shine in public. Instead, she focused on what needed to be done and followed through without complaint. Everything she did came from a deep respect for the values passed down from her mother, Queen Elizabeth II. Even as a young girl, Anne showed that she was ready to carry out her duties. She didn't try to impress anyone. She just believed in doing the job properly. Also, she always made sure to keep her personal life separate from her royal role. In a family where personal stories often become public, Anne made sure to draw a line. She didn't talk about her feelings, avoided the media, and never tried to open up her private world to outsiders. For her, being royal wasn't about being liked. It was about carrying out responsibilities in the right way. While younger royals chose to speak through interviews or post updates on social media, Anne held back. She didn't want to turn her life into a story for the public to follow. Anne didn't think royal work should be mixed with entertainment. She thought it should be done with care and without showing off. These beliefs were shaped by the way Queen Elizabeth lived her life. Anne, just like her mother, didn't see royal service as something temporary. She treated it as something lifelong, something you live by every day with respect.
Provides an element of a focus to that level of service and encourages that in the long term. It's not a short-term thing. You're there for the long term.
She also had strong views about how royals should behave. She felt that anyone who joined the royal family, whether by birth or marriage, needed to understand the rules and respect the family's long history. Her strict standards affected how she dealt with others in the family, especially those who didn't share her way of thinking. One person this deeply affected was Queen Camilla. The difference between them didn't just come from past events, it came from how unlike they were. Their values didn't match, and that caused constant tension. Anne stood for the old ways. She stayed in control, followed protocol, and kept her emotions to herself. She didn't try to soften her image. She dressed simply, moved with purpose, and stayed focused on her duties. Her way of doing things helped hold up the royal family's image of seriousness and dignity. Camilla, on the other hand, brought in a more relaxed and open approach. Since becoming queen, she stepped into a new kind of royal role, one that connected more directly with the public. She started supporting causes in a personal way and often spoke out about them. She smiled easily, joked with people, and looked comfortable in front of cameras. Many people found her friendly and easy to relate to. Her style made the royal family seem more open and human, but Anne didn't see it that way. She worried that being too open might make the monarchy lose its strength. She thought royals should remain respectful and careful, especially in public. Those close to Anne noticed that she didn't approve of Camilla's easy manner and public charm. To Anne, royalty should not be about being popular. It should be about staying true to a serious role. She believed that showing too much of yourself could bring down the image that the family had built for generations. Her actions and thoughts often reflected these beliefs, especially when it came to how she saw Camilla. There were times when Anne was said to speak critically about Camilla behind the scenes. She didn't like how relaxed things had become and felt that the royal image was being softened in a way that could lead to problems. She believed the monarchy needed to stand firm. It couldn't change too fast just to fit in with modern ways. Camilla's new approach may have helped the public feel closer to the royal family, but Anne didn't think that kind of closeness helped in the long run. She thought it took away from the respect and distance that kept the monarchy strong. Her beliefs came from years of watching how her mother ruled. Queen Elizabeth always kept a certain space between herself and the public, and Anne learned from that. Anne stayed loyal to those older ways. She believed they gave the royal family a strong foundation. She wanted that foundation to remain firm in the years to come. While Camilla's approach brought in something new and fresh, it didn't sit well with the kind of image Anne thought the royal family should have. Their difference in style showed something bigger than just a clash. It showed how the royal family was being pulled in two distinct directions, between tradition and change. As the monarchy continues to move through this changing time, that tension between old and new continues to build. Do you think Camilla is the reason why Princess Anne would have left? Let us know your views in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.